I say this quite a bit, but if you've poked around my channel beyond the Canucks and Bruins GM Mode series, you'll know that for the majority of the last NHL season, I attempted to recap every Bruins game. Now I dropped that to focus on the NHL gameplay, a wise decision on my part, but I do still plan on talking about the Bruins quite frequently, of course, and the NHL for that matter, as much as possible, but this video, of course, will focus solely on the Bruins as we head into free agency. So let's get this out of the way early. Before joking around hating on Sweeney and current Bruins management, I'll be serious. Within the past week, Ray Bourque was arrested for OUI, and people asked me if I was going to talk about it, and at the time I said no, but I'll say this. Bourque, hands down, is my favorite hockey player of all time, but I cannot call him my hero. If I had to say who's my biggest inspiration or something like that when it comes to talking about hockey players, yeah, it'd most likely be him. But you hear people say this all the time, and I do have the same viewpoint. I cannot rightfully call any celebrity, athlete, or whoever my hero. Can I be inspired by them? Sure, but for most, these are people that we have never and will never meet, let alone know on a personal level. To me, Ray Bourque is simply one of the greatest hockey players of all time, but he's also just another human who is prone to making idiotic decisions just like the rest of us. And make no mistake, what he did was an idiotic decision, and he's lucky he didn't ruin his life or someone else's life with his selfish actions. Will he get leniency due to his fame? Possibly. I'm not going to comment on that because it's irrelevant, really. But when I say that I truly hope he learns from this mistake, I mean it. I'd hate to see him, or anyone else for that matter, throw away their legacy and just become, oh, Ray Bourque, former hockey player who served 10 years for vehicular manslaughter. If you follow me on Twitter, it's not hard to know that I'm a pro wrestling fan, and any wrestling fan knows exactly who I'm alluding towards when I say that it's not something that you like to see when somebody throws their legacy away. When they're no longer known for what they were famous for, but known for something else much, much more sinister. Moving on to something really quick on the other end of the spectrum, the Stamkos to Boston rumors, which of course have now been completely annihilated now that he is staying in Tampa, but to believe people were actually serious about this is hilarious. Now sure, could it have happened? Of course it could have, but it didn't, and just really, could you imagine him in a Bruins jersey, even if the numbers worked out and all that stuff? It wasn't happening. Besides, to think that some people trusted this team that had their head scout, Keith Gretzky, openly admit to using a first-round pick on a guy who they believe will be a third-line center at best. That's the mindset of this team, and people honestly thought that Stamkos was coming to town. Even if they were to have made him the highest-paid player in history, that wouldn't have solved the issues. Offense was not the problem. Getting Stamkos wouldn't have changed that. Hell, you're not even going to re-sign Louis Eriksson, which is probably a good thing because he'd be way overpaid. The bottom line is we all know that the Bruins' two biggest issues right now are defense and horrific asset management. Just look at the restricted free agent news that came out a few days ago. Brian Ferlin, Chris Casto, Torrey Krug, Joe Morrow, Colin Miller, and Alex Koklachev were all qualified, and that's all well and good. Of course, I can't imagine them being let go. We already know that Torrey Krug has resigned. As far as that contract goes, I think it's good. The stats are there to say that he is deserving of that. A lot of people don't trust him beyond being a third pairing guy that's a power play specialist, but I think he really proved himself last season. It could end up being an absolutely horrific deal. I have faith that it won't. I have faith in him as a player, and we'll see what he does now moving forward. And of course, with Koklachev being qualified, that's just to retain his rights. But who didn't they send the qualifying offer to? Ben Sexton, not a terrible loss, a fringe NHLer at best. Landon Ferraro, a very strong waiver pickup last season, really filled in there as a depth guy. But number one, did they have hopes of him making the roster? Probably not. And if you look at the advanced stats behind him, not the greatest of players. But the third, who is the third man? Brett Connolly. Not to say he won't re-sign, but they gave up 2 second-round picks for this player, and they're potentially letting him walk just a season or so later. And look, I get it. He was a Chiarelli acquisition, and we can't crucify Sweeney for this, but my God. These are the type of moves that have put the Bruins in the position that they are in. Like I said, you can't rightfully blame Sweeney, but it's not as if he hasn't made his his fair share of his own mistakes, 4 out of his first 5 rounders being very off the board picks, but this team is in pretty rough shape all around. Now, as we approach July 1st and the beginning of free agency, obviously there are plenty of questions to be answered. With the goaltending, who makes the jump to be Rask's backup? Subban, McIntyre, maybe if they re-sign Jeremy Smith, or perhaps another free agent signing like Gustafsson was last year, as Gustafsson is also out the door. They need a suitable backup to avoid burning out Rask. If they make the playoffs and Rask has played 65 plus games, they're not going to make it very far. Forwards, who makes the jump? Who replaces the offense that you're losing in Eriksson? Do you overpay for Lucic and bring him back? Probably not. It looks like he's going to Edmonton or Dallas. Do you attempt to get Thomas Vanek for cheap on a show-me deal if he doesn't get a big money offer elsewhere, or at least relatively big money? Do you go for 35-year-old Radim Verbata, Sam Gagner, Tuomo Ruutu, God forbid RJ Umberger, Teddy Purcell, Andrew Ladd? I doubt it. Chris Versteeg, David Jones, Yuri Hudler, David Backes? I doubt it. Eric Stahl? I doubt it. All serviceable players, I'm sure, but at what cost is the key? And as we've seen, this team is smartening up just a little bit, at least in terms of not giving Louis too much on a new deal. And of course, defensively. Now, like I said, I fully expect the likes of Colin Miller and Joe Morrow to be back. We already know that Torrey Krug is back. They join up with nearly 40-year-old Chara, Adam McQuaid, Kevin Miller, now that it's all but guaranteed Trotman and Lyles sign elsewhere. And of course, Dennis Seidenberg was bought out. Again, another terrible contract given out by Chiarelli to an aging guy. Now, of course, as a Bruins fan, who doesn't love Seidenberg and what he brought to this team? But he's past his prime, and I think it was a good move to buy him out. Now, that said, as far as the defense goes, hell, we don't even know if Chara will play. He could decide in the next 2 weeks that he just doesn't have it in him anymore, and he could easily retire. But we already know Chara, at best, should be second pairing. Seidenberg ideally was third pairing before you bought him out. Colin Miller, is he ready for full-time second pairing? Probably not. He'll be a third pairing guy. Same with Morrow, although it seems like he's destined to be third pairing at best. McQuaid and Miller, I don't even need to say it. As far as prospects go, you have up-in-the-air names like Rob O'Gara, Linus Arneson, Casto if he is resigned, Matthew Grzelcyk, and other prospects who clearly won't be ready in time, Zaboral, Carlo, and Lozon. Obviously, the price for someone like Shattenkirk was far too high, and unless the Blues really get desperate and Shattenkirk confirms he'll resign with that team, I don't know if he'll go anywhere. And as I said in the draft recap, I'm perfectly fine with not getting ripped off on a deal like that, but it's not like the market is much better for defensemen. Ideally, you end up with someone like Brian Campbell, who may very well be going back to Chicago on a cheap deal, or Jason Demers, but you know Sweeney, it'll be Chris Russell, an advanced stats nightmare, who we thankfully avoided at the deadline, although we now find ourselves in that crosshair once again. I guess the only thing to say at this point is pray. Now, I don't care if you pray for them to fight to stay as a fringe playoff team, or if you'd rather see them edge closer to full rebuild territory. Anything is better than being in the middle ground, this purgatory that we as Bruins fans find ourselves in right now, where we have no clear direction, no indicator of where this team is heading in the near or distant future. But guys, that'll do it for this video. Of course, as we move along into free agency, I'll be making videos here talking about any deals, any signings that are made, and giving you my opinion on that, and also opening up the forum for discussion down in the comments below. And of course, let me know what you think the Bruins will do here in free agency. This video should be going up on July 1st. I was hoping to have it up a little bit sooner than that, but it is what it is. So yeah, as always, let me know what you think the Bruins will do. Even if you're not a Bruins fan, let me know what you think your team will do. I am always intrigued to see just who exactly is viewing this channel. Obviously, since I drifted further away from just Bruins only discussion, I know there's going to be a lot more diverse number of people, I guess. People who cheer for different teams. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. But guys, as always, if you have enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more, spread the word, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Will the Bruins make a splash on July 1st? Probably not.